Good afternoon. An elderly couple is dead following an early morning house fire in North York.
Now, an investigation is underway to determine how the deadly blaze began. CTV's John Musselman has been following the investigation and joins us live with more. John.
Well, Nathan, that investigation is just getting underway here at the scene. This is a home near Islington and Steeles. Firefighters were called here just after 4 o'clock this morning. We'll show you some video of that. The smoke was coming out the rear. Neighbors tell they could hear of what sounded like a window breaking, and then they noticed the smoke billowing out of the back of the house. That's when firefighters arrived on the scene. We're told when they made entry into the home, it was smoke-filled, very difficult situation. They located two elderly occupants in the home. They were taken out of the home. They performed CPR on the lawn, but they did not survive this fire. Now, right now, we're trying to just determine how this fire may have started, whether there were working fire alarms. Here's what the fire chief had to say this morning and a neighbor we spoke to.
I've been inside in the back, very smoky, heavy smoke damage. They would have had zero visibility crawling their way through there, locating both occupants. And as I said, just a very sad outcome.
I feel bad. What can I say? I know them. It's gonna be 50 years.
Now, one neighbor I did speak to told me this was an elderly couple, but they were very active. In fact, the gentleman would often shovel his driveway in the winter time. So they're quite upset about what's happened here. We're told they've lived in this home for more than 60 years. A lot of family members are here on the scene, also looking for answers from firefighters. Reporting live, I'm John Musselman. I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, John. Police have arrested 3 suspects in connection with a months-long break-and-enter investigation called Project Compass. Police say during the day, the suspects would disguise themselves as construction workers and enter residential apartments and condos. Police allege they committed more than 30 break-and-enters in Toronto and York region, making off with more than $1 million worth of stolen goods. 3 men between the ages of 35 and 49 are facing a number of charges in connection with the investigation.
And 2 men have been charged following a months-long investigation into organized retail thefts at Home Depot stores across Ontario. South Simcoe police say the thefts happened between November of 2025 up to this February. They targeted stores in Barrie, Bradford, Orillia, and Markham. Police say the suspects used tactics like partial scanning at self-checkout and fraudulent returns to avoid paying full price. The suspects, who are both 22 years old, are charged with multiple counts of theft, fraud, and possession of property obtained by crime.
Lawyers are set to begin their final submissions today in the sexual assault trial of billionaire businessman Frank Stronach. At the start of the trial, the 93-year-old pleaded not guilty to 12 charges related to incidents dating between the 1970s and 90s. Prosecutors have since dropped 5 charges related to 3 of the 7 complainants. Stronach still faces 7 charges linked to 4 complainants. His lawyers have indicated they'll seek a stay of the proceedings, alleging some of the complainants were coached by the Crown. Victim Services Toronto is expanding its community-based safety initiative ahead of major sporting events coming to the city later this year.
The initiative, called Ask for Angela, aims to address gender-based and intimate partner violence. CTV's John Woodward joins us live with more on the expansion. John.
Yeah, Michelle, this Ask for Angela program is a way for people facing intimate partner violence to ask for help discreetly at a store. They can use the code phrase, "Is Angela here?" at any cashier, someone who works there, and the people who are trained to respond to that can then connect them with support services all the way up to the police. This service has been used about 400 times since it was first put into place in this city in 2023, and now it's going under a major expansion. Before, there were about 180 stores involved, some of them Shoppers Drug Marts and Loblaws. Now it's expanding to a number of hotels, the CN Tower, and also, very significantly, paramedics, because 1,400 active duty paramedics are now going to be trained to respond to that code phrase and bring people help they need.
Just last week, a staff member at Shoppers Drug Mart recognized the code phrase and connected someone to a victim services crisis team member. Because the individual shared that she didn't have a phone and she would have otherwise not been able to reach out for services, We responded on scene at the hour. We met her at that store. We provided her immediate access to support, found her a shelter bed in Toronto, and she remains connected to support today.
This speaks specifically to folks who don't necessarily want to come forward right away, or where we're not in the environment where we witness these things ourselves. They can ask us discreetly for help, and we can help them in a bit of a non-traditional way, as opposed to calling the police or transporting them directly to the hospital.
So one of the big questions is, what does FIFA have to do with all this? Well, the organizers have asked for Angela pointed to some studies that show that in the presence of major sporting events, that's when they see a surge in intimate partner violence, possibly because somebody's angry at their team is lost, or perhaps they're mixing it with alcohol and they're taking it out on their spouse. So that's coming up later on this year, and the organizers here say this project will be in place in time for that to start. Reporting live, I'm John Woodward. Back to you.
Thank you, John. Still to come on CTV News at noon, the latest on the war in the Middle East. We'll have more on Iran attacking a tanker in the Strait of Hormuz a little later in the newscast. But first, big news in Leafs land. The Maple Leafs have fired general manager Brad Treliving as they wind down a disappointing season.
The move has sparked conversation about the team's future and a potential rebuild. CTV's Mike Walker has been speaking with fans and joins us live with more. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Nathan. Well, this decision to fire Brad Treliving really didn't come as a surprise. In fact, many in Leafs Nation and sports analysts were expecting this move by the end of the season, with the Leafs set to miss the playoffs for the first time in a decade. Now, in a statement last night, Maple Leafs MLSP President and CEO Keith Pelly stated the decision comes after what he called deep analysis of both the current state of the organization and the direction needed to deliver a Stanley Cup championship. Treliving was named GM of the Leafs in 2023, and last season the Leafs finished first in the Atlantic and currently sit in second last in the division. So a lot of disappointment, and you may recall at the trade deadline just a few weeks ago, Treliving took responsibility for the Leafs' failures this season. Here's reaction from fans.
Well, it was something had to happen.
Why is that?
Because they weren't going anywhere this year, and you could see it. He was here for 2 years, and it just wasn't happening anymore for that.
I didn't see any benefits. I didn't see any positive change when he came in. I haven't seen anything until now. Not sure if it's the right person or not for the Leafs.
It was bound to happen.
Why is that?
Just the way things have been going in Toronto. But it's okay. We're happy.
The timing was peculiar, but I think it's our understanding that Treliving sort of pushed the envelope in Pelly's favor and said, hey, if you're going to do this, just put me out of my misery and do it now. And I think that's why they landed at this decision.
So a lot of speculation about what other moves MLSE might make. There are questions about the future of head coach Craig Berube. Hey, he was hired by Treliving in 2024, and hopefully we'll get some more insight later this afternoon when we will hear from MLSE President and CEO Keith Pelly. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Nathan, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Mike. We got more news in a moment, but first, a live look at the city this afternoon as we talk about the forecast. Another double-digit day, mild, great spring temperatures, but there's a trade-off. There's a lot of rain on the way, and gray skies expected for the next few days. Lindsay Morrison has a look at the current conditions. Hey, Lindsay.
Hey, and Nathan, what about all that stormy weather through the overnight last night? So many people, I think, waking up in the middle of the night. What I've done here is back time the radar to show you what was happening while so many were sleeping or waking up. This was a lot of rain and some very noisy thunder. Lots of flashes of lightning, too. Currently, on the satellite and radar, we've got some cloud cover. We've still got some fog in some areas. We've also got a little bit of clearing, and if that continues to happen, that could help fuel additional thunderstorms later this afternoon and into the evening. You mentioned that it's mild, and it is 18 degrees this hour at Pearson Airport, 21 in Windsor. Look at Peterborough, though, only 5. So quite a sharp divide line of where the warm air is right now. Southwest winds are partly to thank for the mild spell today. Here's your today at a glance. Showers and thunderstorms on and off continue. And yes, we'll take you through the forecast for the week ahead. That's coming up. But for now, Nathan, I'm going to send it back over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. The federal government has introduced a $3.8 billion strategy to protect Canada's natural environment.
Our country is blessed by an incredible natural heritage. From the rugged Atlantic shores to the towering peaks of the Rockies, from the sweeping prairies to the boreal forests, from the Arctic to the sprawling mountains of British Columbia. Nature is at the heart of Canada. It is at the heart of our identity.
The plan includes creating new national parks and marine conservation areas the Prime Minister says will require significant funding. The conservation areas are slated for Manitoba and in the eastern James Bay area. Today's announcement was made weeks after conservation groups warned that federal funding was running out.
Canada Post says it's going to begin discussions on ending door-to-door mail delivery. The Crown Corporation made the announcement in a statement regarding its transformation to become more sustainable. It says it's reaching out to bargaining agents for consultations about proposed changes, which include switching addresses that still receive delivery at the door to community mailboxes. Following that, Canada Post will then reach out to municipal officials and other stakeholders. Meanwhile, the Canadian Union of Postal Workers has released a statement that reads in part, "This is not the right time to consult. We are fully focused on the upcoming ratification votes, a significant undertaking." This latest move by Canada Post and the government is yet again another attempt to derail our negotiations process. A ratification vote on a tentative contact agreement with Canada Post is set to be held from April 20th to May 30th. The head of CUPW has urged members to reject it. The federal government has partnered with Ontario on a multi-billion-dollar plan aimed at lowering housing costs.
CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver has more on who qualifies for the new program and the criticism it's facing.
Ready? After 6 years living in a suburban townhouse, Brittany Roddick is ready to upgrade to a bigger home with more space to play catch.
We wanted something with a bit of a bigger backyard and just room to grow. So we're choosing...
Roddick has a new build and a lot all picked out. The only thing she's waiting for is the government's promised tax relief measures to officially take effect.
As soon as we heard this announcement, it was like a feeling like we won the lottery. Like, wow, now not only can we absolutely move forward with purchasing the new home, but we are going to really make it feel special to us.
Starting April 1st, the Ontario and federal government are removing the GST, HST on the purchase of new build homes. For properties valued up to $1 million, that's a 13% savings, or up to $130,000. On homes between $1 million and $1.5 million, the rebate maxes out at $130,000. For properties $1.8 million and over, it's a max of $24,000.
We got to keep taking action until we get the desired effect of getting the market going again.
Ontario and the federal government are also committing $8.8 billion to help pay for infrastructure projects, so municipalities can reduce development charges by half for 3 years.
They've increased a massive amount over the last 25 years. So the City of Toronto, they've increased by over 5,000%.
The Conservatives doubt the temporary changes will lead to lasting results.
Developers will see this as a good start, as something that will help get things moving again. The problem, of course, is that what's missing is, as I said, some long-term commitment to reducing this expense.
Annie Bergeron-Oliver, CTV News.
Canada will learn later today who it will play in the first game of the FIFA World Cup as Italy and Bosnia-Herzegovina square off. CTV's Scott Hurst has been following the football frenzy. He joins us live with more now. And Scott, a lot of people have been anticipating this, finding out who we play. What can Canadian fans expect, depending on who wins?
Michelle, the calendars have been marked, circled in bright red. That June 12th date is when Canada opens its World Cup right here in Toronto. But up until now, we don't know who Canada will be playing. But as you mentioned, that all changes later today. Very closely watching a match between Italy and Bosnia and Herzegovina. The winner of that match will be Canada's opponent in the World Cup on June 12th. That game that goes in Toronto. Of course, we know the history of the Italian soccer team. It's won multiple World Cups, but has failed to qualify for the last 2 World Cups. And of course, as you might expect, there's a huge Italian-Canadian population here in Toronto that no doubt is following this game very closely. But also, if Italy does go on to qualify and face Canada, there might be a lot of split allegiances for that matchup on June 12th. On the other hand, you have Bosnia and Herzegovina. It will be quite an underdog story. So as we know, Toronto will host 6 games during the FIFA World Cup tournament, Michelle, and Vancouver will get a chance to host 7 matches during the FIFA World Cup.
Oh, it's coming up fast. Meanwhile, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre put out a warning about fraud schemes tied to the tournament this summer. What can you tell us about that? What do we need to know?
Michelle, of course, anytime there's an event, whether it's a sporting match or a concert, there is a lot of excitement, but also at the same time, that means there's a whole lot of scammers looking to take advantage of that excitement. We saw it during the Blue Jays playoff run. We also saw it during the wildly popular Taylor Swift shows as well. And so there is a warning out from the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre that says it's currently tracking frauds related to fraudulent ticket sales, short-term rental fraud, the sale of counterfeit goods, and fraudulent travel services as well. The last thing you want is to book a ticket, whether someone is coming to Toronto or someone from Toronto is going elsewhere to catch one of these matches. The last thing you want is for your travel plans ultimately to be bogus. So the Anti-Fraud Centre is also out with some ways to protect yourself, and they're saying to buy your tickets through FIFA official sites. Be wary of listings, of course, that have a price, Michelle, that might be too good to be true. We hear about that one often. Verify short-term rental listings, and when possible, use your credit card, which can often offer fraud protection. So just a few tips to make sure that you can enjoy the FIFA World Cup experience, Michelle.
So important to keep in mind. CTV's Scott Hurst live for us in the National Newsroom. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Well, today is the deadline for Canadians to submit a declaration to take part in the federal government's assault-style gun compensation program. The program is open to all gun owners in Canada who have firearms which were prohibited in May of 2020, December of 2024, and March of 2025. The weapons must have been acquired before the date they were prohibited. The government is advising people that while taking part in the buyback program is voluntary, compliance with the law is not. Owners are being told all assault-style guns must be disposed of or permanently deactivated before the amnesty period ends October 30th.
Air traffic controller staff at LaGuardia Airport may have violated the airport's procedures on the night an Air Canada jet collided with a fire truck. The crash happened just after 11:30 p.m. March 22nd. Both Air Canada pilots were killed. The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board has said there was a controller managing the active runways and airspace and a controller who was giving pilots departure clearance. It remains unclear who was conducting the duties of the ground controller. If the controller involved in the crash was performing both air and ground duties, that would violate procedures that took effect following a similar crash at the airport back in 1997. Turning to the war in the Middle East, Iran has attached a fully loaded oil tanker off the coast, a fully loaded oil tanker off the coast of Dubai.
The attack comes after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to destroy Iran's energy infrastructure if it does not reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Images show the damage to the Kuwaiti-flagged tanker after it was hit by a drone attack this morning. Authorities in Dubai say they have brought the fire under control with no injuries to the crew and no oil leakage. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State of War Pete Hegseth says if Iran's new regime is wise, it will cut a deal to end the war.
President Trump doesn't bluff and he does not back down. You can ask Khamenei about that. The new Iranian regime should know that by now. This new regime, because regime change has occurred, should be wiser than the last. President Trump will make a deal he is willing, and the terms of the deal are known to them. If Iran is not willing, then the United States War Department will continue with even more intensity.
The U.S. and Israel are continuing their attacks on Iran, with Israel saying it has been carrying out missile strikes on military infrastructure in Tehran. In an interview with Newsmax, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declined to provide a timeline for achieving Israel's goals in the war. However, he did say the war had passed its, quote, halfway point.
Several people were injured when missile debris hit a residential building in central Israel. Meanwhile, the United Nations Security Council will meet for an emergency session today after 3 peacekeepers were killed in southern Lebanon in the past 24 hours.
We strongly condemn these unacceptable incidents, and peacekeepers must never be a target. UNIFIL is investigating these incidents to determine the circumstances of these tragic developments. We also remain seriously concerned about several aggressive incidents against UNIFIL peacekeepers in the past couple of days.
Israeli forces have invaded southern Lebanon in a new campaign against Hezbollah. Israel is trying to push the Iran-backed militant group, which has fired rockets and drones into Israel, out of southern Lebanon. Meanwhile, Canadians are cutting back on a variety of things in an effort to afford these higher gas prices.
Other countries have been coming up with ways to reduce pain at the pumps, and now there are calls for Canada to follow suit. CTV's John Rao has the details.
With drivers continuing to feel the squeeze, many worry the cost of that fill-up will keep on going up.
We have nothing to do with the war, but we're paying for it. Painful, you know?
In Toronto, gas is back above $1.70, and some hoping politicians will soon step in to offer some relief.
The gas is too expensive now. I don't like it, so I plan to change to the electric car now.
To drive down the pressure at the pumps, in some parts of Australia, states have made public transportation free. The country's tax on fuel and diesel is also being cut in half for 3 months.
We understand the cost pressures for people are very real as the impact of the war on the other side of the world plays out right here.
Italy's prime minister also moved to temporarily cut a consumer tax on fuel. And the Canadian Taxpayers Federation is pushing for governments to offer up the same here.
The least they could do would be to temporarily suspend their fuel taxes, but, they should be providing real full-time relief.
The group noting the federal government charges an excise tax of 10 cents per liter for gas, 4 cents per liter on diesel. Provinces have their own fuel taxes, and there's GST added.
Some of these taxes are very painful. If you look at places like Vancouver or Montreal, taxes are costing up to about 65 cents per liter of gasoline.
With the war in Iran now into its 5th week and oil prices again climbing, the federal finance minister was asked if the government would cut fuel taxes like Australia.
I mean, we're following the situation very carefully.
The minister wouldn't say, while noting Canada is increasing oil production. Meanwhile, other countries like Spain, Portugal, Ireland have also cut taxes on diesel and gas, at least temporarily. John Rao, CTV News, Toronto.
Following years of planning and preparation, the Artemis 2 mission is set to blast off tomorrow with Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen on board.
We were very fortunate through efforts by the Canadian Space Agency, right, to secure a position for our Canadian astronaut on this mission. And it's fantastic for Canada.
This will be the first crewed mission to the moon since Apollo 17 in 1972. But the goal isn't just to get to the moon, it's to go beyond, eyeing destinations including Mars. And CTV's Heather Wright joins us live now from Cape Canaveral in Florida, where the launch will take place tomorrow. It must be exciting, Heather. What's it like to be there?
Well, Nathan, you can see maybe the clock over my shoulder. It's about 30 hours until this first launch window opens up. And that would be at 6:24 p.m. tomorrow. And it's exciting to be here. They are expecting about 400,000 people to come to the Space Coast for the launch tomorrow. And the energy here, we're at the Kennedy Space Center, it's building. There's a lot of media from all over the world, a lot of people walking around. We had the opportunity to speak with the NASA administrator early this morning, and he says he's not just excited about this mission, about this Artemis 2 mission, but about what the future has in store for the space program. NASA has set out very, very ambitious plans to not only get to the moon, but to stay there, to build a moon base there from which they can launch further exploration to Mars, to other planets, to really get a better understanding of the solar system. And he says that Canada has a role to play in the future of space exploration. Here's a little bit of what he told me earlier today.
I've had a number of conversations with Lisa and the Canadian Space Agency, and Canada is leaning forward with robotic expertise for our ambitions on the lunar surface. So we've already talked about rovers with logistics capabilities. I mean, it's exciting to think about the potential when you're not just going to the moon for a couple of days, but actually trying to create an enduring presence for, its scientific and economic potential and the way we're going about doing it, right? We're not just trying to build this one grand dream state, but lots of missions. We're starting in early 27 to have a cadence of almost monthly uncrewed robotic landings to the moon, and we're going to pack it with scientific instruments. We could raid the pantry at every NASA center. We're not going to have enough science instruments. So what does that mean? I think our partners in Canada, in Europe, the Middle East, across the world, you're going to have students in university working on scientific instruments that are going to someday be on the moon in the next couple of years.
So the commander of the Artemis II said earlier this week, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. So that really is one of the mantras leading this mission, Artemis II, which is scheduled for launch in about 30 hours, Nathan.
Right, that's the schedule, but there have been many delays. What are the biggest concerns heading into tomorrow?
Yes, many delays. They've rolled out the rocket ship a couple of times and had to bring it back as there were issues with a fuel leak. But the crew and NASA officials say as far as the spaceship, as far as the rocket goes, things are good to go. We're going to get an update from NASA officials in a little bit, but from their end, they say so far so good. What they are watching for, however, is the weather. You'll probably notice there's a bit of a breeze here. These winds are expected to pick up later today and into tomorrow. And rain is also in the forecast tomorrow, which of course brings cloud cover. So they want to ensure that there is, good weather for a safe and successful takeoff. They say that they are 80% sure that this mission can go ahead as scheduled, but they do say they are going to be very closely monitoring the weather to make sure that everything's safe, everything's good to go. If the window does not work tomorrow, there are several other windows in which the Artemis II can launch up until April 6th. So the feeling is pretty good here, but we're going to get an update from NASA officials in a little bit in terms of where things stand with about 30 hours to go.
All right, fingers crossed. CTV's Heather Wright at Cape Canaveral in Florida. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
King Charles is set to visit the United States next month. The king last met with U.S. President Donald Trump in the U.K. in September. Buckingham Palace says the trip in late April is to celebrate the 250th anniversary of American independence and to mark the special relationship between the U.S. and U.K. The king will also travel to Bermuda as part of his trip. Lindsay.
Well, it certainly felt like spring yesterday. In fact, we had our highest temperatures in nearly 6 months. Here's a look at the peak temperatures reached. Sarnia, the big winner, at nearly 23 degrees. And we were pretty mild ourselves, 21.7 degrees at Pearson, and pretty warm downtown, too, just over 20 degrees. So here's what's to come. We've got more in the way of active weather on the way. Showers and storms will be dry for part of the afternoon, and then things get quite active again into this evening, with some areas seeing an additional, possibly 40 millimeters of rain. We're likely to see less than that here in Toronto, but again, we'll keep an eye out and an ear out for thunderstorms because that would up our rainfall totals. Coming up, we'll take a look at your weather for the long weekend. That's after the break here on CTV News at noon.
When you see it happen, send it to CTV News. Text 10400 from your screen to ours. Text 10400.
We continue our coverage of the Artemis II mission. Astronauts, including a Canadian, set to blast off for the moon tomorrow. And for more on this out-of-this-world adventure, we're joined live by Sarah Mazrui, planetary scientist at Humber Polytechnic's Center for Innovative Learning. Sarah, I don't know about you, but when I'm on the ground, I regularly marvel at the moon. I can only imagine what it's going to be like for these astronauts to go on a journey there, and especially in your line of work. How are you feeling about all this? We're less than 30 hours away.
God, it's so exciting, and I wouldn't be lying if I said I've been waiting for this my whole life. I didn't get to watch the Apollo missions live, and I can't wait. I can't wait to see this.
Exactly. And now we've had to be patient, right? Because there's been start and stops, and it's looking like that window is still happening, but we'll have to wait and see. In the meantime, Jeremy Hansen, a Canadian, he's among those 4 astronauts embarking on this mission. Maybe you can give us a better sense of why we're returning to the moon now. It's been a long time.
It has been a long time. This is the first time since the Apollo missions that we're sending humans to the moon. But this time it's not just to get to the moon. We're actually going there to have a longer presence. We're going to use the moon as a stepping stone for going beyond the Earth, right? This is sort of to stay there, to learn more, and to figure out how we can go to Mars and maybe even beyond. And like you said, we've got Jeremy Hansen. It's the first time that we've got a Canadian astronaut going as close to the moon as possible.
Cannot wait to see how this all plays out. What do you think scientists are hoping to learn from this mission? What about you in particular? Is there anything that you would like, you can't wait to find out?
Yeah, Artemis 2 is a test mission. They're going to be testing the Orion spacecraft. They're going to figure out how our bodies really adapt to long-term space travel, right? The mission is about 10 days. So how do our bodies respond to radiation, to isolation? And that's what I'm really curious about, because if we're going to continue human space exploration, if we're going to go beyond, I want to see our bodies ready. And I'm really hoping that we'd be able to see an Earthrise from the moon. So we see sunrises, we see moonrises. I'm hoping that they'll be able to capture a beautiful Earthrise for us.
How are you going to take all of this in? If it does all go as planned in 29 hours, what do you have plans to watch all of this?
I do. I know there are a lot of launch parties happening around the city and around Canada, but I'm going to have a mini launch party with my toddler so that he can actually see astronauts zoom, zoom, zoom to the moon. And I'm hoping that we get to have the same thrill as folks did when they watched the Apollo missions.
And then what do you think this could mean for the future of space exploration?
This is huge. If we can set more of a permanent base on the moon, it really opens up a lot of doors. If we can use resources that already exist on the moon, like ice water, to figure out, you know, how can we have a base there? How can we send astronauts to go beyond the moon? Can we actually get to Mars? Or can we even stay on the moon for longer to see how our bodies adapt to that lower gravity? So that's what I'm really looking forward to and excited about.
Yes, we share your excitement. Sarah Mazrui, a planetary scientist at Humber Polytechnic. All the best to you. Hopefully we get to chat about this again.
Would love to, absolutely.
Take care.
Take care.
All right, let's talk about the forecast. And I woke up maybe 3:30 in the morning hearing the sounds of thunder. I was going to send you a text, but that's way too early. I'm sure you were sound asleep.
Oh, no, I was awake.
She would have loved that.
Whatever.
You were awakened by the storms as well.
We definitely heard. What's going on out there? It's like, don't worry, said to my husband. Lindsay told us about this, just some stormy weather. But yes, I know some kids were getting up, and yeah, it's kind of fun when you're safe in your house.
Absolutely. The only surprising thing about the night to me was that my children slept through it.
Yeah.
So
Wow,
there
good.
you go. That was a victory too. I'm looking at our skyline right now, and it is hard to see anything. We've got a whole lot of fog and mist out there. We've also got another round of showers making their way into the GTA. And yes, we're not quite done with the thunderstorm activity either. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm, Injury Lawyers. You don't pay unless they win. It was storms overnight, and then heavy rain continued right through the morning commute. This is what it looked like in Pickering to start off the day. Yeah, definitely a day of puddle jumping. You needed some waterproof boots or shoes while you were out today. But fortunately, you didn't need the winter jacket today either, because it is another mild one. And we will talk temperatures momentarily. I just want to show you, we've got some lightning happening over Lake Ontario right now, mainly to the south of Scarborough and Pickering. And I'll step aside here so you can see that there's also a fair amount of lightning happening to the southwest of London. More in the way of rain starting to approach the west end of the GTA. So that's our next round. But there's an additional round of showers or storms that are going to move in for tonight. I'm simply setting this in motion so you can see just how active and unsettled our weather pattern is over the next few days here. One low pressure system after another. Some dive to the south, some move to the north, but it looks as though we will get some more rain. If we get thunderstorms, it's possible that these numbers could climb even higher. And it's possible also that some areas are going to get a bit of mixing depending on how temperatures play out over the next couple of days here. But there's about 5 p.m. this evening. So a round of thunderstorms possibly, perhaps another line around 9 p.m. And then tomorrow is a drier day, hopefully with some clearing in the afternoon. This system may just skirt communities along the north shore of Lake Erie. Here's Thursday.
Risk of freezing rain, mainly east of Georgian Bay. And then by Friday morning, we are back into some showers. It's not going to be a washout of a long weekend, but we do have the possibility of wet weather pretty much every day. 18 degrees right now, on our way to a high of 20. That's what we're hoping for anyway. Tonight, dropping to about 15 degrees in the evening, 5 for the overnight. And then tomorrow's highs, this is a little bit cooler, but it's near seasonal as we welcome the month of April. And again, crossing our fingers that we will see at least some sun. 7-day forecast looks like this. Thursday is still looking like our coolest day of the week, potentially. Look at Friday, though. Mild again, and then there's that chance of showers right through Sunday. That's the weather for now. Nathan, over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. It was a tough go for starter Cody Ponce in his debut. The Blue Jays pitcher was carted off the field in their loss to Colorado last night.
And he hits one high and deep to center field. Gone.
Kazuma Okamoto hit his second big league homer in the bottom of the ninth, but it was part of a losing effort. The Rockies topped the Jays 14-5. The team also lost starter Cody Ponce to a knee injury early in the game.
0-2 again. Weakly hit to the right side, and Ponce can't make the play, and now he's limping and down.
Ponce was making his first MLB start since 2021 when he injured his knee attempting to field a ground ball in the third inning. So far, there's been no timetable for his return. The Jays and Rockies will continue their series at the Rogers Center tonight, with first pitch set for just after 7.
A big test for the Raptors tonight when they battle the top team in the Eastern Conference.
0 for their last 6 with 5 turnovers, and there's another one. AJ to Mamu.
The team won in impressive fashion against the Orlando Magic Sunday, 139-87. The Raptors will be without Emmanuel Quickley for a 5th straight game, while Brandon Ingram is questionable to play. Tip-off for tonight's game is set for just after 8 p.m. in Detroit.
Masai Ujiri is returning to professional basketball in Toronto. Ujiri is joining the ownership group of the city's WNBA team, the Toronto Tempo. He previously served as an executive with the Raptors, becoming team president in 2016 and putting together the roster which won the team's 2019 NBA championship. Ujiri parted ways with the Raptors last June. Other members of the Tempo's ownership group include MLSE board member Larry Tannenbaum, tennis star Serena Williams, and Montreal Canadiens owner Jeff Molson.
Still to come, a new University of Waterloo study outlines how air quality in North America could deteriorate if nothing is done to address climate change. We'll have more on the research when we return. Prince Edward Island is changing the way it approaches colorectal cancer, which is one of the most common forms of the disease.
The province has lowered the screening age from 50 to 45 in an effort to improve early detection. CTV's Maria Saru has the details.
PEI's top health officials say the province is leading the country in lowering the colorectal cancer screening age.
Waiting till 50 is no longer an option. It's just not enough.
Starting today, islanders aged 45 to 74 at average risk will now be eligible for a fecal immunochemical test, or FIT for short, every 2 years. It's an at-home tool that can detect early signs before symptoms appear. The Canadian Cancer Society has asked all provinces and territories to make the change, citing rising rates among younger adults.
Particularly those under the age of 50 are 2 to 2.5 times more likely than previous generations to be diagnosed with colorectal cancer.
Challenges include expanding lab capacity and access to follow-up colonoscopies. But the province says it's ready.
Each year, PEI sees about 140 new colorectal cancer cases and 39 deaths. These aren't statistics, they are our neighbors, our friends, and our loved ones.
It won't just save lives, but it'll also save money, according to experts.
What we found is that over the next 45 years or so, we can save in Canada over 6,000 lives and about $233 million to the healthcare system.
Last week, the Nova Scotia Liberals tabled a bill to do the same, writing in a news release that colorectal cancer is the 3rd leading cause of cancer deaths in Canada. The call from cancer advocates is for other jurisdictions to lower their starting age, but also for eligible people to actively participate by filling out these forms and mailing in these tests. Maria Through, CTV News, Charlottetown.
A University of Waterloo study is outlining how North American air quality could deteriorate by the end of the century unless steps are taken to address climate change. The study, which focuses on the U.S., suggests 1 in 3 Americans could be breathing unhealthy summer air by 2100 if no action is taken. That represents a 7-fold increase compared to the start of this century. In a worst-case scenario, the study says that young children, the elderly, and other sensitive groups could be alerted to stay inside every other summer day.
Eligible public servants can now apply to retire early as part of the federal government's effort to reduce the size of the public service.
However, there are concerns about whether the Phoenix pay system backlog could impact pensions. CTV's Austin Lee reports.
Early retirement incentives came at the right time for Stéphane Turcotte.
For me, I was planning to retire anyway, so it just, in terms of, because there's a transition support measure and the severance pay, so that's going to help.
After more than 30 years in the public sector, he's looking forward to having more free time and an unexpected boost to his retirement package.
Well, it's great. Going to be a change, of course, on my daily routine. Looking forward to it.
In December, roughly 68,000 notices went out to workers who could be eligible for early retirement. And while some are excited, the National Association of Federal Retirees is cautious.
The public servant that will retire, they won't have the support of the union anymore. So who's going to support them?
The Phoenix pay system remains a pain point for many, with more than 215,000 paid transactions still in backlog. There are...
All right, we are leaving that story. The Ontario Fire Marshal's office is giving an update on the fatal fire in North York. Let's listen in.
Acting Division Chief. Hey, good afternoon. This is an update following the brief remarks made by Fire Chief Jim Jessup this morning at the unfortunate fatal fire incident at 140. Anthea. Thank you. 140 Anthea Drive in North York. At approximately 4 o'clock this morning, our fire crews responded to a fire incident at 140 Anthea. Upon arrival, they confirmed that there was a fire and immediately forced entry into the structure and began firefighting activities and rescue efforts. Upon entering the structure, the firefighters during the rescue efforts had located 2 occupants and pulled them out of the building. While outside the building, they began resuscitation efforts with Toronto Paramedic Services and transported the individuals to hospital upon that time. Unfortunately, those individuals were deceased, and they were deemed deceased at the hospital. Toronto Fire Services is currently on scene. We have our operations crews and the Hussar team that are working collaboratively with our investigators actively while they're investigating the origin, cause, and circumstances. I would like to, on behalf of Toronto Fire Services, offer our condolences to the family and loved ones of the deceased. We are working in collaboration with the Office of the Fire Marshal into the origin, cause, and circumstances. Because we are early into the investigation, we don't have many more details to provide at this time. However, I will open it up to allow for our partners at the Office of the Fire Marshal to provide any details or information.
All right, listening to the Ontario Fire Marshal's office giving an update on a fatal fire in North York early this morning at around 4. And not a lot of new information. They say that they got there, they forced entry, there was a rescue effort, they pulled 2 out of the building, they were rushed to hospital. These were 2 elderly people, both pronounced dead. Crews are on scene investigating. They still don't know the cause, and of course we're going to continue to follow this story. And if we have any new information, of course we'll share that with you.
Still to come, Instagram is testing a new pay tier. We'll have those details when we come back. Some Instagram users may soon be able to pay for extra features.
The social media app is testing a pay tier, which gives users extra benefits. They include allowing subscribers to anonymously view short posts, story posts, as well as giving users more control over who can see what they share. According to TechCrunch, the new tier is being tested in Japan, Mexico, and the Philippines, with subscription prices hovering around $2 a month.
Solid dose of wet weather out there. You're watching CTV News at noon. We'll tell you if more is on the way. Stay with us. Wow, is it warm out there and wet at times?
Wet, warm, maybe a little windy later too. A triple W day. We're going to take one more look at the satellite and radar because there is some wet weather approaching now the GTA from the west, and there's more of this on the way. Potentially some thunderstorms again into this evening. Tomorrow should be a bit of a drier day. Tonight's low is about +5, still warmer than normal. Here's a look at tomorrow at a glance as we officially welcome April. So a little bit of a cooler day, 9 degrees, but that's seasonal. We hope for some clearing and some sun because it's looking pretty unsettled Thursday right through the long weekend. Nathan and Michelle.
All right. Thanks, Lindsay. And that is it for CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5.